Hey, everybody. Stephen Faust here with Flip Lifestyle. Just sitting down with my good friend Doug Sweeney. I want to hear a little bit about Doug's story and what he's doing today. I wanted to share that with you, our audience, and really dig into his backstory and what he is doing today inside the Flip Lifestyle community and what he's putting out into the world. Doug Sweeney, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm well. How are you, Stephen?
Man, I'm awesome. I'm awesome as always. Just can't wait to share with the world what you're doing. And I know you have an online community that you're starting, and we'll get into that here. But first, before we do that, I'd like to know and share with everyone who is Doug Sweeney? What is your story, man? And what's brought you to where you are? Give me some backstory so I can understand more about you, Doug.
You got it. So my backstory starts a long time ago because I'm getting elder in years, I guess. But when I was young, for most of my young life, I was not really led in a good direction, and I took from what I saw illustrated at a young age, and that was alcohol. Alcohol led to a variety of other drugs, but alcohol was always number one in my life. It was the main thing that caused a deeper and deeper addiction. I remained in addiction even after some downfalls or so-called rock bottoms. I would get out and get up from that, try to figure out a way to control it. Never with much success and never for very long because I used with heavy consumption, whatever it was, whether it was an alcohol or some form of drug. But I used with heavy consumption and it always brought me back down pretty quick. So I had a lot of rock bottoms. Some of them hit harder and got lower than others, but finally I came to a point of an action from my using and my addiction that really broke my heart. I drove drunk. I drove drunk and I had many DUIs before this accident, but this particular accident cost the occupant in my car his life. It broke my heart. It broke my heart because this man who did willingly choose to ride with me after we stayed at a bar all night, he lost his life and I didn't. And I had been given so many more chances at life that he had. I had already been behind bars. I had already been in the penitentiary. I had already been to so many bottoms. And not only that, the big factor in this was he was a father. He didn't have his child. I had his child in my home because I dated his ex-wife. So I was raising his kid, and this boy had lost his father because of me operating while drunk after numerous DUIs, after numerous car accidents. So my idea of God was, how could this happen? How could you let me survive and not him? I never had a recollection up until this day, almost 20 years later. I still don't have a physical recollection, and I don't believe I ever will. I believe God has confirmed that I won't. But nonetheless, I struggled. You know, he was buried after before I had even woke up. I was in a coma, and I was in the hospital for a couple months, and I just could not deal with the realization whether or not I was actually the operator or not because I couldn't remember nothing. So the hospital lets me out. I get out and I try to recoup. I try to recover, and I ended up 3 months later going to jail. They found me. They got me. I wasn't. It wasn't like I was running or hiding, but they came to me with an indictment finally of aggravated vehicular homicide. I went to the county jail. During that time, it was reckless and youth oriented, a lot of mindless screaming and yelling and fighting and just dorm material in the county jail. And I couldn't stand it. Had the opportunity to go to a Bible study, went to the Bible study, came back and seen that I had a piece of mail. Wasn't expecting mail, got back, opened the mail, and lo and behold, it was finally an answer that I was just really struggling with for 5 months now. It was a letter from the victim's mother and how she had told me in this letter that an hour and a half after finding out about her son's passing, that she sat with my mother at that time and prayed for my survival because it didn't look good for me either. When I saw that and I read that, I'm paraphrasing it by far. This letter doesn't exist anymore, but that was Christ proving that I was forgivable. I couldn't imagine forgiveness. I always had a God conscience, but the realization that a father to a 9-year-old boy was gone at my hands, I could not imagine, after all that I have already been saved and survived and miraculously came through. I just couldn't believe in forgiveness. But that was the point, that he showed me forgiveness through that woman, through his mother. And from that moment on, I decided I was going to prison for whatever time they gave me, but I was going to get into God's word and I was going to walk with God as close as I could, no matter where the environment was. And that's what I did. I faced 8 years on an F2. I got the charge was dropped. I even had the victim's mother pretty much in my corner at court, and the charges were dropped to an F3. I faced 5 years and I got 4. I went to prison at a higher security status than before because of the nature of the crime, but it was the right place. It was close security. It was more severe and more long-term criminals, so less play and less ramble meaninglessness. So I actually had a good place to do my time. I had a good job. I had a routine, and I walked with God. I studied day in, day out. I went to the chapel services. I went to my Bible studies. I dealt with outside ministries. I took Jewish customs as a Bible college, and I learned how to grow in this relationship. And the first thing that I learned within the first month of being where I was at my parent institution was and it was a beautiful thing from God, because he showed me forgiveness through the victim's mother. And then subsequently therein after, less than 3 months later, he showed me that I had to forgive. I had no one to forgive other than my father. And he was the reason that I used to the excess that I used. I grew up in an abusive home setting all my life, through shame, low self-esteem, nothing really good or promising or hopeful. I never did nothing right. I was always wrong about something, and I always had some marks to cover up or do my best to not let others see. So that was where I came from, and that was who I harbored such anger at for so long.
Yeah.
So by God showing me that it was him I had to forgive, I didn't know how I was going to, but it was a beautiful enlightenment showing me how personal God is. At that time in '04, I think there was almost 6.5 billion people in the world. And he knew me then. He knew me. He proved his personalness to me at that point. And I knew I had to forgive my dad. And it wasn't very long after I took whatever action steps I could. I called him, I wrote him. But knowing that God knew that I had to do this, and him letting my heart know, I could move forward. And from that moment on, I just kept moving forward for it was over 4 years, just a little over 4 years, because when I was arrested, I had a small additional charge on top of it. I did 4 years and 10 months, and I had never been freer than I had been in that close security penitentiary than I had anywhere else in my life previous, because I walked with him.
Such a tragic event that led to that. How has that event shaped you as a person, as a man of God? And then that's led you out of that by beginning to think about helping others. How has that transpired?
It has been rocky road. When I first got out, I got out about 15 years ago almost, and at that time we were at the heart of our recession, and I had some rough times there in the beginning, but those rough times were also so-called predestined, I guess, to keep my faith and to keep going through the motions that I was. And I have, and I did, and I, I've lived in a few different places since then, but I have always taken God with me, and I have finally come back to the area where I'm from, close to, and I have this wonderful woman who knows nothing about my type of background, comes from and has no knowledge of it, but she perfectly accepts me and everything that I have done and comes from and loves me. And she herself joins me with the church to do and all the support I can ever ask for to continue what I plan to do. And so for several years now, while I've walked with God, I have also invested and set myself up for security. And I came across Flip Lifestyle with the ability to invest into it. And I've always wondered for a purpose, a greater purpose than just something here in the Western culture we call normal. But I figured there was a greater purpose for me. And it's been a while since I've been able to even put my finger on something. But when I came to Flip Lifestyle and I seen what they offered and how they were going to be with us through the process, I thought to myself, maybe this could be the thing. This could be the thing where I reach out to adult men who struggle with addiction, at least close to the way that I used to, or even more. All I ever tried to do was have some control, to be functional without going back to jail, without getting pulled over, without losing another job because I drank in such excess. I would never maintain control for very long, and some people do. My dad did forever. He always maintained control, and he did everything that I'm telling you. But some people just couldn't and didn't, and I didn't. And so I thought that I would start this website on the condition of a variable difference between secular treatment and the way that I became free. And I don't call addiction, the first thing people think of when they think of addiction is drugs and alcohol, but we all have something. We all have something. My thing is drugs and alcohol. My thing was that addiction. And I found the freedom through God's word and sticking with God. Just like Peter, when he stepped out on the water, he was good. He walked on the water when he had his gaze on Jesus. And that's all I've ever needed to do is continue. I'm not perfect. I fall here and there all the time. I'm still a sinner and I always will be. But I know that I am sober and I am free and I have aspirations in life because I've been delivered of this addiction through him and through my steadfastness. And I desire to do that for other men and free them so they can have a healthier marriage, so they can be a healthier father and all these things. And there's such opposition between secular treatment and the way that I do this because I know it through and through. I know it frontwards, backwards, blindfolded, upside down, backwards and frontwards. I know AA. I've always known it. I've been in and out of it free will, and I've been in and out of it even more by courts. And it has never been a success for me. And it's a categorical fall of man. It's not the whole thing. And the Bible covers it all.
So you have now, with this wisdom and experience and this tragedy, you've reshaped yourself, reshaped your life. And now you're reaching back and helping other men who have faced similar struggles and circumstances and addictions. So tell us about your program, what your program is, and how it can specifically help men who are facing some form of addiction. Tell us a little bit about your program.
So my program's name is Breaking Bondages from Addiction. It's my belief system that we all, or those who are in addiction, start off with a bondage before they actually create and bring an addiction. A bondage to me it's a mastery, it's an enslavement, it's a boundness. When I was very young, all through my school, up to age 18, when I was abused, when I was emotionally abused, or when I had to defend my mom from being abused, or when I had to call 911 brand new in 1988 because of abuse, or anything like that, or when I had to hide things, those left scars and bondages of fear, a shameness, of belittlement, of introverted, no self-esteem, all these things, until I found alcohol, and then alcohol unleashed me. It broke the barriers. It made me feel freer, until the tolerance that I started with was not even close to enough, and it just carried on higher and higher throughout life. So the bondages to me are the pain points. My pain points was fear, shame, un I had no worth. I never did nothing right. Those were the pain points of why I consumed, and they were pretty many of them. So I consumed quite a bit. I suppressed deeply, and so I think it's when we identify our bondages and then slowly work through them. But then not only that, the other key element to the beginning of my program is going to have to be, and I say it with as much comfort as possible, but it's going to have to be forgiveness. We're going to have to see that we are forgivable, and subsequently therein after we have to forgive. There is always an unforgiveness. There's always a forgiveness that needs to be seen. And when these things transpire, it's not a once and done. It's a little by little. It's an evolving thing. But the freedom is felt, the freedom is known, and there is hope that stacks on top of more hope. And it gives you the push to keep moving.
Sounds like a great program for people to come in, get your help and support, to get encouragement, to learn how to forgive and to get back on track. So that's great. Sounds like a great program. If people are interested in learning more about your program, where should they go?
My site is breakingbondagefromaddiction.com. I have a PDF, a free PDF for Unchanging Hope. It's a reference guide to Unchanging Hope, and I have my small video. And I implore you to please, through complete comfort and safeness, I ask that you just schedule a Zoom call with me. Doesn't matter the time. I have a 14-hour wide open window, several days or most every day of the week, I believe. And I ask that you will just call or schedule the time, and I will honor as much privacy and length of time that you want to have on this call. And let's just see if it works for you. Let's just see if it's something that you would like to at least take a baby step towards.
Yeah.
I waited far too long. I spent over 12 and a half years of my adult life in some form of jail. And addiction was the cause of every bit of it. Not once was I ever in jail. Not once did I ever have an accident sober. Not once did I do anything without the addiction sphering the whole thing.
There's no reason for people to be alone right
There
now
isn't.
in this. There just isn't. And you offer hope, encouragement, support. Breakingbondagefromaddiction.com. They can schedule a one-on-one Zoom call with you, complimentary, and begin to unpack their situation and learn how to get even more help through your program. Doug, I appreciate you, man. Great to learn your story. Great to see what you're doing in the world, putting out there. And again, breakingbondagefromaddiction.com. Jump on a Zoom call. Doug will help you begin the process of walking through this, never to be alone again. So Doug, appreciate you. And we'll talk again soon, my friend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.